Hi everyone, this is Dan, and this is Tinseltown by David Lucarelli and Henry Ponciano. This is an Alterna Comics mini-series, and this is the collected first 5 issues of Tinseltown, which originally ran as a mini-series, and I think it was published in Alterna 2018, but I think David Lucarelli made it before, which a lot of Alterna comic book series started before Alterna and then get turned into Alterna comics later. But anyway, so this mini-series has been around for a while, and I've actually had issue number 1 for a while, but never really had time to fully complete this collection. And recently I was able to finally complete it out and read the whole thing in one sitting, which for the outstanding cost, well, to be fair, this is the old cost, right? This was the 2018 cost. This is more of the modern cost for Alterna. So you can see this one comes from a recent print run. As you can see in the more recent print runs, Alterna Comics, they're running for $2 US or $1.99, $3.50 Canadian, and 2.5 pounds. Actually, why is the UK price more expensive? That doesn't make any sense. Did the pound drop in value? Weird. But anyway, so this series has been around for a while, and I just kind of revisited and reread the whole thing, and I've been meaning to do a review. And after, I would say, the last couple of crowdfunder reviews, I felt it was kind of nice to go over an Alterna series, just because I don't have that many Alterna Comics videos. I should do more. It's just finding time, and a lot of times these Alterna comics, they tend to not stand like one issue on their own, like say an old school Marvel book. They tend to require you to have the whole miniseries to really give it a review. And again, for the price that they sell them at, this isn't really bad. You end up, this basically ends up being like a graphic novel for, about like $10 total, right? Around there. And then the newsprint quality is pretty darn nice too, and for the Alterna books. But this series I've been meaning to go over because it's a great example of just solid fundamentals. And I'm going to be honest with you, one of the reasons why I haven't reviewed this book, even though technically I've had like issue number 1 since like forever. In fact, it appears in one of my earlier videos when I first went over Alterna Comics. I think actually during the pandemic of 2020. And the reason why I never really reviewed this is because when I read the first issue, the premise didn't really interest me that much. And I just kind of fell out of it. And then after a while, as I kept getting more and more Alterna Comics, I kept seeing this series, and, the price eventually kind of convinced me to give it a whirl. And I kind of regret that I didn't read it earlier. And, even though I still am not that into the setting and the background of this story, the fundamentally sound storytelling by David Lucarelli, and also the ever improving art by Henry Ponciano. I think I should say improving because initially I wasn't into the art in this book, and then as time moved on, the art just kept getting better and better, and that's usually what I like to see, is just continuous improvement. That's always like a good sign for the artist and whatnot. But anyway, I've kind of babbled for 4 minutes here. What is this series about? So Tinseltown is basically about this main character right here, Abigail Moore. She is basically the daughter of a LAPD cop. And when we say LAPD, don't think of like, Bosch on Amazon Prime or something like that. This is like way back, like early LAPD, like probably, I don't know, like the 20s or the 30s or something like that. Like old Hollywood, kind of Los Angeles. Anyway, she grew up and her dad died in the line of duty. And, after a rough upbringing, she eventually kind of grew up and, kind of decided that she wanted to become an officer, just like her father. And this was back in the days when it was very, very uncommon for a woman to become an officer in any police force back in these days, right? Oh, the Wicked Righteous. I actually like this series, but unfortunately the creator, I don't know what happened. He kind of had a falling out with Alterna. But yeah, and basically she ends up going to Utopia Studios, which is sort of a play on Universal Studios in Hollywood. And she gets to become a cop, but not the kind of cop that she wants. She ends up basically being, a show cop, on like props and stages, and basically an actress, for lack of a better way of describing it. Even though technically she does work the beat, but she only works the beat within the Studio City world, right? I don't know if any of you guys have ever visited Universal Studios, but there is basically a very famous tour of their studios where there's basically a city within a theme park, where you kind of see how this all kind of works as like its own self-contained thing, similar to like Disney World and stuff like that. I don't know if you guys ever been there. But anyway, she ends up finding that a lot of stuff within both the park and Hollywood is not as it seems. And what I want to mention here is the first issue here basically focuses on her background, her upbringing, who she is as a character, and the premise of the story, and her drive, her motivations, all that other stuff. All of the fundamentals of the story are basically answered in this first issue. Now, even though I'm not into it, the reason why I want to bring up Tinseltown is I think a lot of people should, especially if you are more of the decompressed style of writer or storyteller, right? Which seems to be everybody nowadays. Like, nobody wants to do the old school way of telling stories. So in which case, at the very, least, let me give you a very cheap and affordable example of fundamentals, right? So Tinseltown is all like really, really good fundamentals. It's just characters are introduced appropriately, the setting is introduced appropriately, motivations are shown, there's a good, hook, sort of dramatic hook at the end to get the reader to buy the next issue, right? Which is kind of what you want to do if you're going to be decompressed, right? And, it helps that, I don't know if David Lucarelli kind of knew that this was going to be sort of, or designed it around an issue to issue. It feels like it. Because unlike other books in the Alterna lineup, which really feel like they're more a graphic novel that got cut into pieces, Tinseltown actually feels like it goes issue to issue. Because even though issue 1 just basically sets up everything pretty well and then leaves you on a very slight cliffhanger, which isn't too bad because again the $150 price at Alterna really sells it for you. And then the next issue right here, closes that climax down, as well as introducing a lot of other important characters and issues that are going to have to be resolved through the rest of it, right? And you get a whole bunch of different, basically the first 3 issues end up being kind of like short stories to a degree that kind of slowly build into the final 2 issues, which is sort of the climax right here, where you get to, where basically Abigail finds out a lot of the really dirty stuff going on in the background and ends up trying to do what she can to fix the problem and save the day, for lack of a better way of describing it, right? I know I'm being very general and coarse. Normally I break these things down a little bit more intensely. But in this case, for the cost of these issues, I think you can go, read this yourself. Because this isn't really a book series that's sold on, recognizable characters or extremely high quality art, though I do enjoy Henry Ponciano's art here. But the stories, this is really more like a, it's more like short stories or pulp fiction, in the sense that this is really sold by the plot and the stories. And then the character is developed through these plot and these stories. And from reading these 5 issues, you end up liking this character, Abigail, more a lot, and become more interested in future issues with this character, right? Again, this doesn't mean that necessarily, I guess I'm kind of making it sound very like fundamentals by the book, bland. But it's definitely not. There's a lot of twists and turns in here, and there's a lot of things, especially near the end, that I didn't see coming when I first got into reading this story. So if you need a good read, right, that doesn't cost you a ton right here, I'm not sure if Pete Samedi keeps this series stocked. I know this issue number 2 took a long time for me to get a hold of, just because for some reason it was just out of print forever. The rest of the issues were pretty easy to get a hold of. But the point, or the big takeaway here, is for those of you who want to become, your own writer, your own, comic book creator, right? I recommend, and you also are more into the modern storytelling style than you are into, say, 80s comics like I am, or like what the French do or something like that, then I kind of recommend taking a look at Tinseltown, because A, it's very affordable. It's a great read. Really enjoyed this 5-issue miniseries. But more importantly, the first issue and then every subsequent issue afterwards kind of, to me, is like the prototypical, storytelling style, I think, for independent creators. Just make sure you get your fundamentals on the first issue, slowly build up your character through sort of like an early storyline or a collection of early storylines, then go ahead and continue as you were sort of in the long format storytelling that everybody wants to do. Like, everybody has some like big overarching story or epic that they want to do, but they don't want to go through the motion of building up their character, building up the world, building up motivations and conflicts, or minor conflicts to build up motivations, backgrounds, etc., right? And I think sometimes it's useful to kind of point out, I think, shining examples like this book that can help out a lot of the aspiring creators out there. Also, if you're just a reader, and you don't mind trying something that isn't necessarily superheroes or something high action, I do recommend Tinseltown. It surprised me a lot, and that saying something. I genuinely, overall, I feel like a lot of Alterna comics have, kind of in the middle of the road quality. I'm not trying to bash on anybody, by the way, at Alterna. It's just I don't necessarily give everything from Alterna high praise, despite how much I like Pete Samedi, the company, and the price. Just because some books from them I don't really care for. And this book, initially, I didn't really care for. But I kind of, the price, and this is kind of the beauty of newsprint and affordable cost, right? Is that eventually things that you wouldn't see yourself, continuing after the first issue, you end up, coming back to and buying the rest of it and reading the whole thing as a whole, right? So again, there is some method to the madness over at Alterna Comics. Anyhow, guys, that's the video. Let me know what you think. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hit the bell for notification. If you got any comment on Tinseltown, leave it down below. And I will see you next time.